The year is 1177 BC. The Bronze Age, the age of heroes and empires, is collapsing. The great civilizations of the Mediterranean, the mighty Hittites, the seafaring Mycenaeans, even the eternal Egyptians are all under attack. The culprits are a mysterious confederation known to history as the Sea Peoples. They swept in from the sea, burned cities to the ground, and then, as mysteriously as they arrived, many of them simply vanished. History tells us they settled in places like Canaan, becoming the Philistines of biblical fame, or were absorbed into other cultures. But there's another story, a shadow narrative that challenges everything we think we know about ancient history. What if a faction of this massive, desperate fleet didn't stop? What if they sailed past the Pillars of Hercules, out into the great unknown Atlantic, and pointed their ships toward the setting sun? What if they crossed that ocean of darkness and landed in the Americas, a full 2,500 years before Columbus? This is the story of the lost fleet and the strange, haunting echoes they may have left behind in the soil of the New World. To understand this incredible journey, we have to understand the travelers. Among the most feared of the Sea Peoples were the Shardana, legendary warriors known for their horned helmets and round shields. By 1150 BC, the Mediterranean world they knew was a graveyard. Famine was everywhere. The old trade routes for tin and copper, the lifeblood of the Bronze Age, had collapsed. There was nothing left but war and starvation. So a group of Shardana captains, along with their allies, the Danuna, made a radical decision. They looked at ancient maps, they understood the ocean currents, and they knew the world was far bigger than their dying sea. They assembled a fleet of 50 high-prowed galleys, built for the deep ocean. They loaded their families, their livestock, and their most precious tools, the secrets of metal. They sailed past the ruins of fallen empires and slipped through the Strait of Gibraltar under the cover of night. Once in the Atlantic, they were caught by the Canary Current. This powerful ocean stream acts like a natural conveyor belt, pulling ships southwest, straight towards the Caribbean and South America. For weeks, they drifted on the open ocean. Mutiny was a constant threat as thirst and fear took hold. But the captains, masters of celestial navigation, held the course, guiding the fleet by the stars and the flight of birds. They weren't just explorers. They were refugees with no home to return to. Their only way was forward. But the fleet didn't survive the crossing intact. Violent storms in the mid-Atlantic scattered the ships. One group, pushed north by the powerful Gulf Stream, found themselves in a strange, cold land of dense forests, Nord America. And it is here that we find one of the most baffling mysteries in American archaeology: the Michigan copper mines. Archaeologists estimate that between 2,500 and 1,200 baitas, say a staggering 500 million pounds of nearly pure copper, were mined from the Great Lakes region, especially a place called Let me repeat that. 500 million pounds. Yet, the simple tools used by local indigenous cultures at the time coin and possibly account for an industrial operation of this scale. And here's the bigger mystery. Where did all that copper go? It practically vanishes from the North American archaeological record. The lost fleet theory offers a mind-bending explanation. What if these displaced sea peoples, whose own world collapsed because they ran out of copper and tin, stumbled upon the richest source of copper on the planet? The timing is perfect, aligning exactly with the Bronze Age collapse. Imagine it. Mediterranean warriors, clad in leather and bronze, sailing up the St. Lawrence River, meeting the ancestors of the Ojibwa people. They were too few to conquer, but they came with a singular purpose: to extract the resources they so desperately needed. There are even strange linguistic clues, with words resembling Old Norse and Semitic roots found in some local dialects, hinting at a long period of contact. While one group was mining copper in the north, another mystery was unfolding down on the East Coast. In New Hampshire, there's a site known as America's Stonehenge. It's a confusing maze of stone walls, chambers, and standing monoliths that seem to align with astronomical events. Now, these structures are completely unlike anything built by local Native American tribes of that era. The most controversial evidence, according to the late epigrapher Barry Fell, is literally written in stone. He claimed that markings on the rocks weren't just random scratches from colonial era plows. He identified them as forms of ancient writing, including Ogham, an old Celtic script, and even Phoenician, the language of the people who rose from the ashes of the sea peoples. One stone, he argued, was a dedication to the Phoenician sun god, Baal. If a mixed group of Mediterranean refugees landed here, what's the first thing they would do? They would build temples to thank their gods for their survival. They would build sacrificial tables and astronomical calendars to try and understand the seasons in this strange, new land. Mainstream archaeology dismisses it as a colonial farm, but for others, these are the ruins of a lost colony, desperately trying to recreate their world in the forests of New England. The largest part of the fleet, however, would have been carried by the southern currents, making landfall somewhere in Brazil or the Gulf of Mexico. And it's here, woven into the foundational myths of the great pre-Columbian civilizations, that the theory finds its most powerful and poetic support. Think about it. The Aztecs, the Maya, the Incas, nearly every major civilization has a hauntingly similar legend. It's the story of a bearded, pale-skinned figure who arrived from the eastern sea. The Aztecs called him Quetzalcoatl. For the Incas, he was This wasn't a god of war. He was a teacher, a bringer of civilization. He taught the people engineering, agriculture, and astronomy. He showed them how to build with massive stones, map the stars, and organize their society. Now, imagine a ship of sea peoples, exhausted but alive, washing ashore in Mexico. They possess all the advanced knowledge of the Bronze Age. Their iron and bronze weapons, their strange horned helmets, their massive ocean goi. Shipped to the local people, they would have seemed like gods. And there's more. In the 1800s, a stone inscription was allegedly found in the Paraíba region of Brazil. The text was written in a Phoenician script and told the story of a ship blown off course by a storm, separated from its fleet, and landing in a strange, hot country. The original stone vanished, and the story was quickly labeled a hoax. But years later, modern linguists analyzed a transcript of the text. They found it contained grammatical details of 8th century BC Phoenician that no 19th century forger could have possibly known. So, if they were here, where did they go? Why isn't the Americas dotted with Greek temples or Egyptian-style pyramids? The answer is simple. Numbers and assimilation. These weren't millions of invaders. They were a few shiploads of desperate refugees. In the cold north, they were likely wiped out by harsh winters or conflict, or they simply married into local tribes, leaving behind only strange ruins, maybe a few genetic anomalies. In the south, they were probably absorbed into the ruling class. They became the priest kings, the architects, the bearded gods of legend. Over a few generations, their bloodlines would have died. Their language would have merged with local dialects, and their precious bronze tools would have rusted away in the humid climate. They didn't vanish. They became the people. We might see faint echoes of their presence in the sudden sophisticated pottery styles that appear in South America, or in the baffling discovery of tobacco and cocaine plants only found in the Americazine ancient Egyptian mummies, hinting at a trade route that officially should not have existed. The lost fleet theory is uncomfortable. It's dangerous to the neat, established timelines of history. It suggests that the Atlantic Ocean wasn't a barrier, but a bridge. It implies that the kind of global exchange we think of as modern might have begun over 3,000 years ago. Archaeologists demand definitive proof, like pottery in graveyards. The theorists point to the winds, the myths, and the mountain of impossible coincidences. But when you look at the giant stone heads of the Olmec, with features some describe as African or the incredible stonework in Peru that mirrors ancient Mediterranean techniques, you can't help but feel a connection. It's likely the survivors burned their ships upon arrival, either for raw materials or as a final, symbolic act. They were no longer the sea peoples. They were the first visitors. They lived, taught, and eventually died. Their stories dissolving into the myths of a continent that would not even have a name for another 2.5 millennia. They're the ghosts in the machine of American prehistory. The silent partners who may have helped jumpstart entire civilizations, only to be completely forgotten by the world they helped create. Did the sea peoples reach the Americas in the Bronze Age? The ocean keeps its secrets locked away. But the stones, the words, and the legends are finally beginning to whisper the answer. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more explorations into history's greatest mysteries.